What's going on, everybody? It's another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. We're back once again. It's Throwback Thursday. It's March 16th, otherwise known as 316 Day, Austin 316 Day. I would flip the birds, but this is a family show. Big Austin fan myself. Really hyped to get into that. But before we do, we're going to talk about Dynamite. And before we do that, let me introduce my co-host over here, Anthony Ricciardi, head of opinions here at Wrestling Republic, broadcasting live from Philly. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. I mean, celebrating the fact that Orange Cassidy won and Soul will be losing his hair in a few short weeks.
It's a very good point, and we will absolutely get into that match and the details surrounding that situation. I feel like we added some definite interest to that one on last night's Dynamite. But before we do, let's talk about Dynamite. I don't want to put you on the spot here in front of everybody, but you said something last night that was pretty telling. At the end of the show, you said that's one of the best Dynamites I've seen in a while.
Yes, it was.
And I agree with you there, man. And it was cool to hear from you because I'm a little bit quicker on the trigger to say something like that about AEW. And that's no knock on you. You're as unbiased as they come, but you will be hard on them in places. And before we get into segment by segment, what did you see in particular, top to bottom, that made you feel that way?
For me, the opening segment I thought was great. I mean, we're going to get more into that. I thought it opened with a really strong opening, closed with a really good closer. It made me interested to see the next week's episode of Dynamite just based on how it ended, see where they're going with it. And to me, that's an important thing. I thought they opened strong. I don't know if you want me to start going into that or you want to just, what do you want?
No, let's right before we do. I mean, yeah, I love what you said there too. And let's get into that strong opening. Yeah. The opening segment of the night was the 4 Pillar segment, and long known internet lore. I don't even know if it's ever been explicitly said on AEW television outside of a few certain small instances of people mentioning,
well, they released a shirt for it
and whatnot. Yeah, they had the shirt.
I think MJF has mentioned it before.
Yeah,
he mentioned it with his feud with Darby.
It's never been like, it's always been teased. It's kind of a little bit like the 4 Horsewomen angle in WWE. It's been teased more often than it's been used. And the opening segment was MJF's bar mitzvah or re-bar mitzvah, yes, which was hysterical. The entrance was hysterical. One by one, I think after we got the first 2, we knew it was going to be the 4 Pillars. Mm-hmm. What I don't think we expected, and what I was most impressed by personally, was, boy, did all the other 3 pillars cut promos on their own that held up in relation to MJF. I don't know who deserves credit, each one of them individually, Darby, Sammy, and Jungle Boy or Jack Perry, or if MJF deserves credit for kind of hanging back and not being the traditional MJF that would be so cutting and so slick that he could stop him. I don't know who deserves more credit, but I was really impressed by all 3, especially Darby Allin. I would have called him the outlier on the mic in that ring, actually, because I think Jungle Boy in his rivalry with Christian really showed he can really go on the mic. Not that Darby's not charismatic on the microphone. He's just not the talker. Right? Jungle Boy can kind of talk. He really is clever and doesn't quite get enough credit. You know, before Christian came along, he really carried Jurassic Express on the microphone himself. But yeah, I was really impressed by Darby's performance, especially the way he sat down and the stand. It was well played out body language wise. But Anthony, what was your biggest takeaway from the whole segment?
Well, the one thing I want to say is I really liked the bar mitzvah segment. I really kind of felt that they should have stretched that out a little longer. I know they're one of the things that Ben Allison said to me, well, the AEW audience really doesn't like big promo stuff. I thought that was incredibly entertaining of a segment. That could have been their Rock, Mankind, This Is Your Life type segment where I thought they cut that a little short. So I don't know why they cut it that short. But yeah, once Jungle Boy came out, I didn't immediately go, oh, they're going 4 pillars. But the moment Sammy came out, you're like, okay, they're doing this. Like they're doing 4 pillars. I think what worked with that segment, and I've said this before on here, in writing, realism. There were elements of realism to it. And I think that was the key to draw the audience in, because when you're able to blur that line of, wait, are they shooting or not? Because there was definitely realism behind some of the shots that were taken on the mic during that segment. That was stuff that probably was not written for them. That was probably something that was festering in them. And I wouldn't think it was scripted, but I could easily see them turning around going, shoot. Because Darby burying people in the back that complain on Twitter, that want to leave the company, clearly a shot at MJF, because obviously the bidding war of 2024 that he keeps mentioning, and Darby mentioned it as well. I thought what made that work was the shoot type aspect of it. I thought that was Jungle Boy's one of his best promos. Sammy surprised me as good as it was, because, and I think this was a conversation you and I had prior to all this, where I think we had a conversation of going, what has Sammy really gained out of being in 2 groups with Jericho other than being a lackey? And he referenced the fact that, he was essentially supposed to be the job guy, or the guy that's just the lackey to Jericho. He flat out admitted it on there. Darby's comments really did not shock me, because I remember hearing before that Darby's intention was to stay with AEW no matter what. So that really didn't shock me. It wasn't like a statement that was like, oh, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, no, you knew. But when you look at somebody like MJF or whoever, you're in the wrestling business. It's a business. I get loyalty, but at the same point, you got to pay the bills. Somebody's offering you more money, you at least got to hear them out. So to make that statement of going, I don't care what they offer. Well, I mean, if you're fine with what you're getting paid, I get it. But I wouldn't fault MJF or anybody else for that matter in the business to at least explore the options if someone's interested in them, whether it's Kenny Omega with WWE or Jay White, as a free agent, whatever. I don't blame them for it, but I thought that was a really solid segment. I partially wonder whether or not they did the segment now because they don't know where MJF is going to go in January. So this may be their only chance to do this thing. I don't know, but that's the thought went through my head when I'm watching this going.
That definitely, I hear where you're coming from there. I found really fascinating about the segment too, and you kind of touched on it, but each pillar that isn't MJF, because he's the only one that's held the world title, right? But each one, and this is what I found like totally fascinating, each one delivered a different cut or jab.
Yep.
At Max. The back and forth about wives and divorce between
Sammy and
MJF was hysterical. The Darby's call out about his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Jungle Boy called him out for his toughness.
The one line that I really did enjoy was Jungle Boy pointing out that MJF does not wrestle on anywhere other than Dynamite or pay-per-views. He doesn't do Rampage. He doesn't do... And the funny part is that was one of the things that I think that was a criticism that Piper got a lot of times too, where he would do promos, but didn't... I mean, Piper
not around enough.
A ton of matches, but especially in the 80s, Piper was smart. Like he would never actually get pinned by Hogan in WWF.
No doubt.
During that run, which I think a lot of people forget, Piper would lose, but he wouldn't lose by pinfall.
Right.
So MJF is a lot of this. I mean, MJF has taken a lot of his shtick from Piper. I mean, that was when you see him, it's very Piper-esque.
Oh, no doubt.
and that's intentional. You could
I
tell.
feel like it's almost more East Coast Piper, is what I
Yeah,
would
I
call
mean,
it.
it's definitely Piper inspired more
Piper
than
with his
anybody else.
history, like in
I would say.
LA and on the West Coast, he had more of an LA, like outside of the kilt, like the
Yeah.
fashion wasn't as big of a thing for Piper.
Hmm.
He was more of a, I don't know how to even explain it. Yeah, the Burberry is a big deal, but I agree with you on the parallels between the two. There's
Yeah.
no doubt more than enough.
I thought it was a solid segment. I did find it interesting. I know why they did it. I found it interesting that MJF walked straight through the ring so he can get hit by Jungle Boy, obviously, or Jack Perry, whatever you want to call him. Because you would think as the heel, he would have exited on the side he was on, realistically, as
Right.
opposed to walking through. The parting shots to all of them. I mean, him falling into the cake. Well, that was okay. You knew that was coming. But I'm very curious where they go with this because they just had their pay-per-view. So I guess you're dragging this out to Double or Nothing, which is 2 months away. That's a long time to drag this out.
Definitely. I did think though that the accuracy on the cake spot was something to be commended. That was impressive.
Yeah.
It was as good as someone can be caked.
No,
I mean,
but
you can't ask for much better than that.
Let's be honest. Cake in wrestling always ends up with somebody in it. The same way contract sightings always end up in a brawl. Doesn't matter what the company is. It's the universal law that doesn't happen.
Actually don't have that segment on the list, but we have a couple seconds here before the 15-minute mark. Speaking of people with history with cake and wrestling, Tony Storm, and there was the promo segment last night with the whatever they're calling themselves with the green spray paint, her Paige, her Soraya, the Outcast, her Soraya, and now Ruby Soho. And I thought the promo was pretty good between the three, but it wasn't the brightest spot of the night. But
I gotta be honest, I think this angle it should be good. I just don't. They're not making me want to care, and that's a shame because I want to. I see the segments and I'm like,
it's an angle that has like a lot of good things on paper, but it's been very predictable and telegraphed thus far. Outside of maybe the Ruby Soho moment, and I think they thought that moment would be bigger. I think what they actually need is a big. So, like for example, last night it was cool to see Riho and Willow and that group run down to interfere. I don't want to say Mercedes Moné, but and Taya Valkyrie, who we're going to get into next, got a great pop. They need a big babyface moment, I think, to really get us invested in this match. To add to the Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter trio would be ideal.
I think what hurt them with this, and we know it's NWO inspired, right? I think the problem was these people were in AEW for a while. So now you're going to turn around and go, well, they're the outsiders. I'm like, they're already all elite. Like if you were going to do this angle, it would have to be people coming in the same way Hall and Nash. Like you could have one guy that's there, like Hogan was there. But like realistically, all three of these people have been working in AEW for months.
So I hear your point, but right before we move along,
yes,
the one that I wanted to get to was Thunder Rosa needs to return and be and team with Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. Given the heat and the history, though, she needs to be the third. That
would be the smart play.
That is
if they could play nice.
That is who needs to be the third, and that moment would change the whole storyline. It would change the whole dynamic. That would be fascinating. But we've only got 10 seconds left. We got to go to the next topic for sure. But the next one, sticking in the women's division, TBS title. I think we expected not a squash last night from Jade, but what we got post match made some sense of it. Taya Valkyrie's debut. I was excited about it personally. I really, really, really think Taya Valkyrie is overlooked. I think she made the best out of Frankie Monet in NXT, which I think was bogus. But I think Taya is as talented as anyone. The look is great. Bell to bell, she can work. And on the microphone, she can stand up to anyone. To be a legitimate challenger, also to Jade, when they stood eye to eye, the way she matches her physically is something that we don't see outside of maybe Nyla Rose is intimidating physically, right? There are physically even a Willow Nightingale size wise can stand eye to eye with Jade, and you could tell, right, strength wise it's comparable. But Taya looked, and it was more impressive to me because I would have expected Jade to really, really overshadow her physically, and that was not the case. It looked like the strong Taya barely looking up, almost eye to eye with Jade Cargill, and the stare down to me is what made the segment. But let me get your thoughts, and I know you're a huge Impact guy, so you've watched a lot of Taya Valkyrie.
Yeah, I mean, Taya's been kind of everywhere. I mean, she's had tours in Impact. She's been in MLW, although I don't watch MLW, but my understanding is she was there. She had the short-lived NXT run. Just as a whole, I've never been a huge Taya fan. I do think she's really good on the mic. In the ring, I'm not as crazy about her, but it has been a while since I've seen her. Maybe I'm wrong. You did mention something that I did think was interesting. My opinion is because Jade has had such a dominant run, she's the only TBS champion there's ever been as of right now. 50 something, was it 54 successful defenses, whatever it is.
Yeah, 54 was last night.
To me, I would think, and this is my feeling on any of these situations when you have a dominant champion, when you lose, you should make somebody. Taya's been around for a while. The name that you mentioned that I think could get made and should probably be in the position, not Taya, would be Willow. Willow was slowly moving up the ranks. She started with Ring of Honor just before the shutdown and eventual Tony Khan acquisition of it. She's still there. That's who I would probably give it to. The complete opposite of Jade. She's the complete opposite of Jade. Babyface, different look.
Love that idea.
To me, that's who you put the belt on. You have Jade beat Taya because that adds more legitimacy because you've beaten a multiple-time women's champion, not the multiple-time women's champion from Canada that she squashed last night in 3 minutes or 3 seconds or whatever it was. I mean, that was brutally bad. Like the announcers were like, she's a 4-time champion, 17-year pro, and she gets beaten by Jade in like 3 seconds. Like, really?
To piggyback off your idea, though, I really like it, and I'm glad you met. I'm a huge Willow fan. I've seen her live now 3 times.
Yeah.
The first time I saw her on Dark, for some reason, she was on Dark before Rampage at All Out, and the arena was not very full. But I'm telling you, there was something about her entrance, not much. As soon as she got into the match, the charisma just shines.
You can't teach that.
It's unique. And I was at the Dudley's Gear taping with her and Ruby.
Yeah.
With the spot off the side of the stage, which was incredible.
Yeah.
In person. Say what you will about it if you watch it on TV, but in person, that spot was incredible. And looked incredible. It looked like a Bubba Bomb. And it was really cool in the camo pants. I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah.
But she's so likable, unbelievably likable. And then, so what I would say is, and what could be really cool though, is her character and the way she is so smiley and so happy all the time. Might be interesting to see also because Taya similar in build to her and similar in style, bell to bell.
Yeah.
With, as you mentioned, her sublime ability on the microphone. Maybe if Taya takes a loss to Jade, but then starts helping build Willow.
That's a possibility.
As like a mentor type scenario would be a very cool thing because then you can have some tag stuff together.
Yeah.
As the preemptive, and then Willow gets her big moment because also, and back to my original thing that I like the most about the segment in and of itself, which was the stare down, because it's really hard to have a stare down where Jade Cargill doesn't look like she's going to absolutely dominate the person on the other end of it. She doesn't look like she can throw Taya Valkyrie around. Like that isn't right. That didn't look to be the case. And Taya didn't back down an inch. In fact, Jade backed up last night, right? Which I actually
makes sense.
I liked. Yes,
from a storyline standpoint, it's a veteran. This isn't the squash opponent.
But Taya had the look. The look I thought was the facial, there was confidence, the intensity. It was serious, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed that part of
the way I would do it with Willow, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent with this thing, but
you're fine.
Realistically, what I would do, you keep building Jade up. Have Willow be the opponent who beats Jade for the title and cost her 100th successful title defense.
That'd be amazing.
Have her at 99 when she's facing Willow.
That'd be amazing.
Have Willow beat her.
I would.
Not only does she end the streak, she wins a belt, gets her moreover, and to me, that's money to do that.
I would love that. Almost maybe via roll up to set up a rematch.
Whatever they want to do, but
because Willow's actually really good technically, I will say this to Anthony: the first match I saw her wrestle, and I'm blanking on her opponent's name, which I feel terrible about, but it was a singles match, and it was way better than I anticipated. The wrestling holds they were using, it was a classic bell to bell, a good 10-minute match, and I was like, okay, this is different. I'm gonna remember the Willow Nightingale girl for sure. And then sure enough, next year she's back, and you're like, that makes more sense. But
she reminds me of No Way Jose as far as the charisma and the party like character when she comes out. That's what my head immediately wants.
But the way she wrestles, I would say
different.
Because I'm like, she almost to me reminds me of like and don't overthink too far into it, but like the way, not necessarily like Nation of Domination D'Lo, but D'Lo with like the head nod and everything, like when D'Lo was just in a good mood and like and smiling and like I don't know, like
I miss D'Lo.
and move set wise a little bit of similarity. She'll go to the top rope a little bit like D'Lo too, and with the size, you don't expect the athleticism off of the top rope that Willow has in her arsenal. It's impressive, no doubt. She can fly.
Am I wrong? Hasn't she used the Sky High?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the Bubba Bomb she hit off the side of the stage in person from where I was sitting.
Yeah. I'm curious who trained her, to be honest.
We were all kind of sitting in the seats and looking at each other like, are they okay? Like that was a long way. And it was Impact was loud. It was no joke.
I remember.
And that was the match with Thumbtacks, and that was the most memorable spot for me.
Oh yeah, I forgot what I forget what it was called. Oh, she was trained by Mike Mondo. So
there you go.
That's the Spirit Club squad. One of Mikey from Spirit
right.
Club.
Mikey from the Spirit. He was good wrestler himself.
Yeah, I was curious who trained her.
Absolutely. No, but all around, I think we touched on that enough, and both can agree. Actually, introducing Taya as a legitimate rival to Jade here is a good idea, at least in the short term. Even if Jade's going to retain, right?
Yeah, I don't think Taya needs to beat her. Like I really don't think she needs to. I think Jade would benefit more from beating Taya than the other way around.
No doubt. Now let's move on though to one of my favorite things that we get to address. And that is the International Championship, the AEW International Championship match, Orange Cassidy and Jeff Jarrett. And for those of you that don't know the history or just joining us, Soul, our good friend Soul, host of the Soul Sessions, one of the best guys we all know, put his gigantic hair on the line in this
Carlito throw,
betting on Jeff Jarrett. his newfound favorite guy against Orange Cassidy. And Orange Cassidy won. So Soul's hair's gone. And we're going to shave it at WrestleMania week and definitely donate it to charity because Soul's a good sport. But boy, I was so happy. When he landed the orange punch, oh, it was the best. I mean, that is classic. Of course. Soul loses his hair. How'd you feel about it, Anthony? I know you were involved in the
Yeah. When this was originally talked about, when Soul made the announcement, which none of us knew he was going to make on Sunday after our trivia challenge. So all those reactions were genuine. It made me definitely interested in this match, which I wasn't prior to it, to see which direction this would go. It has not been a good week for Soul. It started out him losing to me on the trivia thing, despite the fact it being AEW, which was essentially his house. And then followed it up with Orange Cassidy pulling out the win. And needless to say, in the private message chat, we've been busting his balls all day about this. The funny part is Soul did not know until he woke up this morning what happened because he did not watch Dynamite live. So that was interesting. We all know that Soul was getting his hair cut and he didn't. So, yeah, needless to say, we've been having fun with that. But
I personally celebrated on Zoom like I scored a touchdown in the NFL. You were there with me.
I recorded a promo.
I think I jumped the highest I've jumped since I was a kid.
I mean, I recorded a promo to send to you guys, but the match itself, now that I'm actually going to talk about the match and not all the extra curricular, horrible. The extra stuff that,
curriculars. The extra curriculars. I got you.
Yeah, I was struggling there.
Well, by the way, I had to walk away to sneeze.
Long week. Bless you. But,
God
Orange, I know Orange is your guy. I'm more of a Danhausen guy. I know you like Danhausen too, but Orange never really appealed. But obviously I was on Team Orange last night.
Oh, yeah.
So I did think that was probably one of his best performances. And I think part of that is, and people may not want to give him credit for this, Jeff's been around for a very long time. Jeff knows how to make people look even better than what they are. After 40 years, the man knows how to do it.
I agree. To be totally honest, I thought last night was Orange's show. Orange put on a display.
Yes.
It was impressive. And we talked about it last night during the match. One of the things that I think Orange does not get enough credit for is the hands in the pockets people make jokes about. Put your hands in your pockets and go run a sprint. I'm telling you, if you think that that's easy, now put your hands in your pockets and do a flip. And right, your hands are so important to all of that stuff. And he runs around like he's a gymnast in these matches.
Yeah. The two issues I have with it, and I think a lot of people have issues with it, in the sense that I think it hurts some of the realism. I know it's scripted, but I think it hurts it. Another aspect is I do think it's risky for him to do it because he doesn't have his hands to protect them.
Right.
When he does these dives and stuff, which is really an unnecessary risk. I know it's a part of the character, but just in general, that could end badly. If you know what I mean?
One thing I will say though is I've watched a lot of Orange Cassidy, and I think the most impressive thing is when he bumps, when he does get caught.
Yeah.
With the hands in the pockets. Part of the reason you can see he's wearing jeans, but it's an elastic waistband. They're stretchier jeans than normal. He does an amazing job of getting his hands out of his pockets to take back bumps. If he's going to take a back bump from a hands in pocket spot. So I will say that's one of the parts that's most impressive to me is he's very polished with what he does with his hands there. Now I know where you're coming from though, because it's dangerous. Now, at the same time, it's funny because the beach break and the dead eye are almost the same move. Like beach break's dangerous. He's such a small, skinny dude. He gonna hit that on so many people. Orange Punch, on the other hand, though, I'll say this. At first, I was a little skeptical. You know, and then you really think about it, and you look at and I always harken to MMA because I'm a huge MMA fan, but Superman punches at 125, 135, 145, and 155 pounds. Guys that leave their feet and can throw a legit right hand. That's a lot of power, and they produce a lot of power. And when they land, it puts your lights out. It's something you don't see at higher weight classes. But I do think, in his defense on that move, the way it's delivered, the elevation he gets, the extension he gets, and then whether he leg slaps or not, there's always really quality audio. And I actually think it's deserved because it's clean. And I am not anti leg slap. I'm anti over leg slap. Is what I would say. But in defense of the Orange Punch, it makes sense to me. It's something a smaller man could use effectively on a larger one to close the distance, to close the reach advantage, and land a knockout type shot, produce the power with the explosiveness that he has as an athlete, the elevation he gets, the extension he gets, and the torque he creates, turning it over. It's one of my actually favorite finishing moves, and that's no knock on Roman Reigns' Superman Punch. But I will say this, Orange delivers it better. Roman Reigns' Superman Punch that would kill someone. If he lands that full force and throws it with great technique, that could kill somebody. Well, and I understand the difference in size and whatnot, but the delivery of the Superman Punch itself, the Orange Punch it gets too much heat in my eyes.
I think a large reason it gets heat is for two reasons. One, the Roman comparisons,
right,
and the other is Orange is incredibly skinny,
right.
So I think that visually bothers people. I'm not saying me, but I'm saying other people. I think that's a large reason why he gets some of that flack for the move, would be my guess. But realistically, it's not so much all the time of how hard you hit somebody. It's where you hit somebody.
Right.
So, anybody can get a lucky shot, especially to the head. So, I am not offended by him doing the move. I know some people are, but I'm not.
Yeah. And that's where I would even say, just for context too, if you look at Roman Reigns, if he lands a true Superman punch at full force, obviously that's freakishly dangerous. The guy's probably 260 pounds, 250 pounds right now walking around.
Yeah.
But if he runs out of the gates at Francis Ngannou and throws a Superman punch, he's probably getting slept on the way down.
Yeah.
Orange, if he has to fight at 135 pounds against Aljamain Sterling, might be smart to use his speed and quickness to throw a Superman punch as a surprise out of the gates. And that part of it, to me, I think, to close the distance, right? That part of it, to me, I think, is what gets a little bit overlooked. Now, Roman's obviously with the ooh-ah and the theatrics, that changes some things. I don't know. What I think would be fascinating is, because we obviously see the Huracan, the spinning back fist with just MMA strikes that get utilized with Eddie Kingston. Then we see, other Judas Effect spinning back elbow, right?
Yeah.
I think a Superman elbow would be a very cool, because it's been used in MMA a few times. A Superman forearm style elbow, would be a cool finish. And it's
kind of what AJ does
with the phenomenal forearm.
Yes. Yeah, that's where my head went when you said that.
That's a very good call. So yeah, but I think we sufficiently covered Cassidy and Jarrett.
We can talk about the run-ins. I thought there was an insane amount of run-ins.
The run-ins was wild.
And I don't I don't know if it felt like it was more because we had a vested interest on who was winning that. So it added more suspense from our end of going
Yes,
who's going to win, as opposed
I
to
agree.
if the soul aspect of this wasn't in play, I don't know how. Who's going to win? Wait, are they going to? I think that added to it.
No
To be
doubt.
honest,
I'm in full agreement,
yeah,
and so much so, and not only that, more importantly, let's get into this last segment of Dynamite. Let me
yes.
also announce we're going 60. We're going the full 60. We consider going
Oh, we
45.
are now.
Ben was like, go 60.
Yeah.
I was like, nah. And then I was like, yeah, we're gonna go 60. We're gonna go 60 because we have it's 316 day and we haven't even touched the
We're
glass
Iron Men,
shattering,
if
stone
you will.
cold.
We're
Come
Iron Men. We
on.
go 60.
Yeah, we're going 60. But let's get into the main event of
Yes.
Dynamite,
Mhm.
which saw the Dark Order and their match
Yeah.
with the Blackpool Combat Club. The Blackpool Combat Club are officially heels, which I find interesting.
Wasn't it Jericho's group?
I'm sorry, JS and Blackpool
Oh, I know.
Combat Club.
You got confused because of the matching
Yeah.
colors, because you said last night it looks like the Combat
Well,
Club because they were red and black.
It's the three-way.
They
It
were
was
they,
a
they
three-way
were wearing the
match.
stripper pants. So yeah.
But so the question of the night is, and the question of the day is Hangman Page re-teaming up with the Elite?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting way to end it. My initial question, and I think I said this to you last night, was, is this the end of the Dark Order in AEW? Because we've been teasing that of going, all of a sudden they're getting used after not being used at all forever and a day. Are they going to get shipped off the Ring of Honor? If Hangman is going back with his former Elite brothers, you'd go, well, Dark Order, what's left of it, the few members that are left, where are they going to go? Realistically, I would put them in Ring of Honor. If you're keeping them, put them in Ring of Honor. Let them rebuild themselves there, because they don't have room on AEW TV. They barely have room for the people they have that they actually use. And Hangman was never officially a member of the Dark Order. Like they never officially made him a member. He never agreed to become a member. He was just kind of like, well, we're friends by association. Like that's pretty much how it went. I did think it was interesting, them teasing the Elite reunion. That leads it yet into another question, just like the MJF pillar thing. Are you doing the Elite thing because Kenny, whatever his situation may or may not be? You knew they would eventually probably reunite them. I don't know where it goes from there. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not a fan of Moxley and Hangman continuing the feud. I kind of felt like, the death match should have been it for a while. I think they should have went their separate ways. You could always rekindle it down the road, but that visual, and I've said this before, the visual of Hangman choking Moxley with the chain, that should have been it. I don't know why they're continuing it. The Combat Club is more a group now, and it's not even it's barely a group. It was barely a group before. They were kind of like friends by association. Like there was a group, but like they would occasionally be together, but like when one of them was getting jumped, they may or may not help the person. It's the weirdest stable I've ever seen in wrestling, where it's like we're stable.
I'm gonna say this. Last night, I thought the Blackpool Combat Club looked the most, because I agree with you.
Yeah.
To this point, they haven't looked like a group. Last night, they looked the most like a group. I mocked the gear because unfortunately it matched the JAS. But at the same time, I thought they looked the most like a group yet. And I think it's very clear the direction this is going. And they're setting up for blood and guts.
Yes.
And I think, to your point about the end of the Hangman Moxley feud, I think that's over. In singles competition, I think the Hangman Moxley feud is one of those things where it's the root of the Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club in Blood and Guts. And It's the reason it started. But we aren't going to see them again in singles action. They still hate each other.
Here's the part that they're going to have to explain. This is the dots they're going to have to connect. Why would the Elite care about Combat Club? I mean, technically, they don't have a feud with those people. Realistically, they don't as of right now.
I think it's time to tell the Jacksons and Kenny always had a soft spot for Hangman's story. And that would be the only logical answer I have to your question.
But realistically, they have to answer that question.
No, I agree.
You and I are.
I think that is the story that needs to be told.
You and I are in agreement. Like, for a perfect example, Damage Control in WWE.
Right.
You and I.
Why are you friends?
The issue we have that they've never answered. Why are these people together?
Yeah.
So AEW has the same situation. Why realistically are these people getting back together? Because Hangman had support from Dark Order, didn't fully want it, so he's involved with them. Well, he didn't go to the Elite, they didn't go to him, so it's kind of like they're going to have to put that piece back together and not just going, we're putting the band back together.
I think it'd be very cool too if they can tell it in a way where
it's not forced. It makes sense. That's the key.
It's like the look, we know you had to go do your thing, but we always wanted you to be successful because at the end of the day, like, we had our differences and stuff, but like, because it's a little bit like Sammy and KO, right? Sammy and KO have feuded in a way that Hangman hasn't truly feuded with the Elite as a whole. And so it's easy for it isn't BS being fed to us.
No, I get you.
If they go the route of like, hey, did it hurt our feelings when you went and did all this other stuff? Yeah. But at the end of the day, we always considered you like our brother. We always considered you our friend. We always wanted you to be successful. When you were the world champion, that's why we walked out and there was that moment. And that's something they can build upon, because I'll say this, AEW gets bashed sometimes for various things as far as booking, but that was like a nugget when Hangman won his initial thing that, it was easy in this time to say they never capitalized on.
Yeah.
But it actually makes a little bit of sense. And I do understand that only is beneficial to the hardcore audience, but with production, if you show that moment before you do the segment that you and I are kind of preempting and discussing here, that dot is not that hard to connect. It's really not.
There's one thing that people say, and they'll say with AEW, occasionally they'll say with WWE, they're like, oh, long-term booking.
Yeah.
Long-term booking does exist. However, there are situations where it really wasn't their plan to connect these two dots. But if you can go back and go, okay, this piece is still lingering there, why don't we connect it with this one? It's not really long-term booking. It's taking advantage of a valuable piece. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not. I'm not saying that the moment that they had when Hangman won the title was not a nugget, but you still could connect to it even if it's not.
I also think that's smart to do. You don't need to follow that up the next week. I guess I hear where you're going with it, but at the same time, I do think it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to give them so much credit that it's like, oh, they were going to pay this off in 6 months. But at the same time, it's not dumb to use it. But we've only got 15 minutes left. We haven't even gotten into freaking 316 day. Forget AEW. It was a blast talking about it, but it is Stone Cold's day.
It is Stone
Steve Austin, one of my all-time favorites. It's
Mine too.
316 day. As much as I love St. Patty's tomorrow, because any drinking holiday is exciting for me, 316 days is as big of a drinking holiday as any. I wish I had a beer to crack on air, but I don't. But I will be, I assure you, after this, having a few broken skulls myself, no doubt. But let's get right into it.
Yes.
Stone Cold had, let me count two right here in the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 WrestleMania matches.
I believe he's
7,
6-2.
6 and 2?
I believe so. He lost to
6
Rock
and 2. He lost to The
and
Rock
he
and
lost
Bret
to
Hart.
Bret. Yep. Rock and
Once
Bret.
by submission and once by pinfall.
Yep.
So let's start with the first one he ever wrestled at Mania, which it's Mania season. Let's get into Stone Cold at Mania. WrestleMania 12, which I was at as a 5.5-year-old. That was against Savio Vega. And he was still the ringmaster, and he won with $1 Million Dream. Memorable match, though. And it was only about a year and a month later, he cut the Austin 316 promo. Interestingly enough.
King of the Ring. Yeah.
King of the Ring.
Yep.
Which is iconic. Now, what I didn't realize is that promo. No. I'm sorry. That's a lie. It was June or July of 96 that he cut that promo.
It was June of 96.
Yes, because then because
Triple H was supposed to win that.
Yes, by Survivor Series, he was in the rivalry with Bret Hart, the initial one with the turnover pinfall in the $1 Million Dream.
Yeah.
And then the submission match at Mania 13 was the next one.
Yeah. And somewhere in between those two was the Owen Hart pile driver.
Right.
The SummerSlam.
No. That's 90. Wait a minute.
That was 97, and I you know what? That was probably after. It had to be after.
Yeah, that had to be between. No, you know when it was? It was after 15. No, it wasn't. Was it? Yeah, because Owen would have been.
This would have been about the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, so that was 90.
I think it was 97.
Wild.
So it would have been after the Bret match, because the Bret match would have took place in March or April of Mania.
Right. It would have been right after that.
It would have been that. It happened. Yeah, it happened that August.
How did they get him back by Shawn?
Yeah. So then 14 was the first WrestleMania I watched. I became a fan around the January period of 98, which at some point I'm sure we'll discuss on here at some point, one of the throwbacks.
Yeah.
But, that was the first one. And, Shawn was one of those ones that drew me in. It was Shawn and Taker. Taker was the initial one. The Taker.
That's 13. 13 was Shawn and Taker.
No. No, I'm sorry. I jumped one. 13 was the submission match with Bret. That's the infamous photo, which I don't know if you necessarily see the footage
14
now.
14 was Shawn and Stone Cold. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 14 was Shawn and Stone Cold. So 13 was the submission match with Bret, which is still one of the greatest matches of all time. Austin never tapped. He was busted open, bleeding, something you don't see in WWE today, but he was bleeding and passed out from the pain of the sharpshooter. It's one of the greatest visuals that there's ever existed in wrestling. It's been tried. They've tried to recreate it. Different places have tried to do it, but there's only one original, and it was that match. 14 was, like I said, the first one that I saw, and that was the Austin era began as Austin dethroned Shawn, and Shawn went away for about 4 years. As far as in-ring competition, he did come back as a commissioner after, but that didn't last.
Yeah, and it's so funny. The WrestleMania 15 match is one I think gets overlooked.
I was at that one
with The Rock. It's an amazing match, and he wins. 17, everyone talks about because of the heel turn.
Yeah, and I'll be perfectly honest. 17 gets a lot of credit as I'll go, oh, that's the best one, because it was such a phenomenal Mania, and it really was. But in my opinion, Austin and Rock have faced each other 3 times. In my opinion, and I may be biased because I was there, The 15 one, I think, is better than the other two.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, if we're going to talk, and it's not Mania, but all-time Austin matches, one of my favorite matches of all time is the 3 Stages of Hell match with Triple H at No Way Out 01. That match
Yeah.
is freaking amazing. And the finish with the sledgehammer and the 2x4 at the same time, and then Triple H just falls on him. It's perfect, and I loved it, and it's one of my favorites.
Yep.
18 against Scott Hall. The stunner cell is hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Scott took a phenomenal stunner. And I think the question to this day was, why was that the match?
Right.
Because, I mean, obviously, Rock took on Hogan during that show. Now, there have been rumors over the years that Austin did not want to face Hogan because Hogan did not want Austin rising up the ranks in WCW. At least that was the belief at the time, or that's what Austin has felt. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Austin has said that.
Right.
That he felt that Hogan held him back. So now the Austin was in that top spot. He's like, and realistically, an Austin versus Hogan match, on paper, that sounds phenomenal. In ring wise, style wise, it would not have been a good match.
No.
It would have been a lot of backstage.
I wonder if Kevin Nash was injured. Kevin Nash might have made more sense than Scott Hall.
Well, Nash was ringside. You know, I understood why they did Scott Hall and Austin, because realistically, out of the 3 members of the NWO, Scott was the best of the 3 in the ring.
Yeah, but at the time,
so it would make sense why it would be Austin. And the adding factor, and I think this kind of backfired, was that, you know, Austin was a heavy beer drinker. Scott Hall had alcohol problems.
Yeah.
Scott was clean at the time. They were teasing that during the entire feud, which was really not a good idea.
It was not a good look.
It was not a good look. It did not end well.
Well, then remember the spitting out the beer on the stunner, I believe.
And I believe it. Yeah, I believe they didn't use fake beer either. It was real beer. And Scott got sick because he was on medication,
right,
to try to prevent him from drinking, and it just made him sick.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering the story,
I believe
correctly.
that's actually correct. And I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like, can't you just give us Austin an angle? Like, come on, does he have to have an NWO guy?
Yeah.
Like, really? At that one, that would have been great. If it was possible, I don't know.
That's
the only regrets. And by the way, why are we nitpicking on Stone Cold Steve Austin? Because
Shawn took on, was that the year? Who'd Shawn take on that year? It wasn't Jericho, was it?
At 18, Shawn wasn't back yet. Jericho at 19.
Oh, that's right. He came back at 19. Because I'm like, realistically, if Shawn was there, you do Shawn and Scott again.
Yeah. Or Shawn and Stone Cold again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Austin left. Shawn came back.
Austin and Shawn would have been amazing again.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. It's one of those things where it's funny. I was thinking about it today, just this morning. One of my favorite matches ever with Austin is actually not even against like a wildly threatening opponent. It's Austin and Dude Love with Vince as the special guest referee. It's one of my favorite Stone Cold matches ever.
You're talking about the over the edge?
I believe it was over the edge. Yeah.
The set had all like junk cars.
Yeah.
And Austin launched Dude Love on top of the cars. I mean, it's awesome. You know,
when the ref bump with Vince and Vince wearing the skin feet cut off. It's so funny.
Obviously, we're not going to get into it now because we only have a few minutes left, and quite frankly, it would take forever. It would take a full episode anyway. But the Austin McMahon thing.
Well, it's just the best.
That is
a few minutes. Yeah, let's talk about it.
That changed the industry forever.
Of course. There's Austin and Tyson.
Austin and Tyson. I mean, again, all that period was phenomenal. So I think the last matches that we have left, Austin faced The Rock in what was for the longest time his last match ever, which they did not advertise until after he had it. He did the job, did the time out of tradition, losing on the way out. And then, of course, last year, he came back and put and took a win over Kevin Owens in a return match.
Okay, so I love that. And before we take this home,
yes,
last year's match was I couldn't believe how good a shape he looked to be in. I get he wore a t-shirt, but he looked great. He hit a suplex on the ramp.
Yeah.
He hit a suplex on the. No, he took a suplex on the ramp.
He took a suplex. Yeah,
he took a suplex on the ramp.
Which we all thought.
Wait a minute. I almost didn't give him enough credit there. But the question is,
yeah,
do we see him in just a few weeks from now in a little city called Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, night 1 or night 2 of WrestleMania?
My opinion with this, and I said this to somebody, because it may have been you, it was other people. Somebody asked me, they're like, do you think Austin's going to wrestle again? And my opinion is it has to be the right opponent. But what I mean by that, and I believe I'm pretty sure I did write something about it. It has to be an opponent that could take bumps for Austin. So all these people going, oh, Brock and Austin. Brock and Austin's never going to happen. Austin's neck could not handle Suplex City. He couldn't handle it back in 2002. He sure as hell is not going to be able to handle it now because it's a lot worse. So people like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, LA Knight, for example. These are people that I think could bounce off of Austin well on the mic and could bounce around the ring for Austin. Because really, Austin coming back is a greatest hits thing. Nobody's watching an Austin match going, we want a 3 Stages of Hell classic. No, they want the greatest hits. Couple middle fingers, mud hole getting stomped, and couple stunners,
bunch of right hands,
and call it a day. That's what people want. Nobody should be going into an Austin match in 2023 or whatever year it's going to be and going, this is a match of the year contender. You're not getting that anymore. You're not.
No doubt. I'm 100% with you, and I don't think that's a possibility. I think if he is going to do anything, it's going to be some kind of encounter, maybe LA Knight.
LA Knight would be the smart one. I just like MJF.
Yeah, versus what? Yeah.
Just how MJF has modeled himself off of Piper. Whenever I heard LA Knight back in the day when he was Eli Drake, when I first saw him in Impact, you could tell Austin was an inspiration because that is the Austin one.
It is.
Ken Kennedy, he stole Austin's shtick. 100%. I think LA Knight does it better, but you could tell Austin was a huge part of LA Knight's inspiration.
It's funny because they mention The Rock all the time with LA Knight. I see as much Austin as I do The Rock. He does.
I see Austin more.
Similar to both. No question. Either way, it's always fun to talk Stone Cold. He's, I think, the most important professional wrestler of all time. It would be what I would say.
Think about how many Austin 316 shirts were sold.
I mean, look at the pairing they just made with like the MLB. You can get like Cubs 316 shirts now.
Fanatics.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome, but yeah, it's hysterical. I mean, if you think about the shirts that they're selling at live events, I mean,
for specific cities and stuff,
316 shirts are still flying off the shelves.
I think
in 2023,
I would think the 2 most iconic wrestling shirts is Austin 316.
Yep.
And the NWO. DX would probably be number 3.
I think NWO would be second to only Austin 316. Yeah, easy. For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, it's been such a fun show today. And happy 316 day, everybody. We got St. Patty's coming up tomorrow. So back-to-back holidays, drinking holidays too. So that's always fun.
And you have March Madness.
But yeah, it's been, and March Madness on tap. I mean, it doesn't get any better. And it's Mania season. It's UFC on Saturday. We're on fire right now.
Yeah.
For programming and sports fans and everything. It's a great time of the year. Even the Masters, if you're a golf fan, is coming up. But that's going to be all for today. If you haven't thrown us the like or the subscribe, please do. In the comments, they all help us. Thank you so much. And for me and Anthony Ricciardi, it's been a blast. And we're going to talk to you guys again soon. Are you back on tomorrow or is that just me?
I think it depends on what time the show is.
No worries. We'll get that figured out
We'll figure that
tomorrow.
out.
But either way, we'll let you guys know. It'll be posted on the Instagram and or the website soon, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.